Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, we're rolling. It is Wednesday night. Gridiron Grinder time nonetheless. We're doing it a little bit early this week with the holiday coming up. And yeah, so anyhow, I'm Ryan. With me as always, my buddy James. And yeah, just a couple dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. This is episode 77. And so for tonight, we're going to do Name That Stadium to kick things off. After that, we'll cover the news from around the league for this past week. And then we're going to jump into our Week 16 power rankings and game picks. And then to close things off, we're going to do question of the week. And so, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
It's going good, man, except somewhere along the way, I skipped an episode. So last week I said we were at 75 when we were really at 76. And so, hey, I was pulling up the YouTube page and it said 76 videos. So I was like, oh shit, we missed one somewhere. So, but hey, it's
Yeah.
all good. We're back on track now. This is 77 legit. So we're good to go. All right, let's kick it over. Let's do Name That Stadium. So, for anybody who's watching, this is a part of the show where you can see James is out there traveling the country. Every week, he's got a new stadium in his background. And what we're doing is we're just asking if you think you know what stadium that is, hit us up in our comments section. The first person to get the right answer gets a special shout out next week's show. And so, James, where were we at last week, man?
Last week I was at Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Stadium.
Okay. And was there any particular inspiration for that pick?
I thought it was the game of the week. It was the Colts or the Patriots at the Colts, so I thought it was going to be the most entertaining game of the week. Didn't necessarily turn out that way. I was a little surprised in how it went, but
Yeah, it was a good game for the Colts. It was a subpar performance by the Patriots. And, I was thinking about some of that, and I probably have it in my notes for while we're talking, but it's, sometimes you got to remember the Patriots still have a rookie quarterback. They have a lot of new pieces on that team, and some weeks they're just not going to gel. And so they definitely gotten better as the season's gone on. But I guess it's not unheard of or unexpected for them to have a little bit of a slip here and there.
that's true. I thought Mac Jones responded well in the second half, though. It was the first half that was just really crappy.
Yeah, and that's positive, so you take some of the good with the bad. All
Yeah.
right. Well, cool. Good stuff. So let's move it on over. Let's hit up our recap of the past week. And so, the first thing is just talking about COVID. It continues to be an issue. I saw that we got a couple head coaches now that are going to be out. I know Stefanski was out last week for the Browns. Looks like he's going to be back. It looks like Robert Saleh and Nick Sirianni from the Jets and the Eagles, respectively. Looks like they're probably going to be out, or at least they're on the COVID list for now. And then I noticed some big name players, Travis Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, they both been added to the list. But honestly, I went through the list today, James. There are so many guys going on it and so many guys coming off of it. It's hard to keep track of, man. And then, with the new rules that they got going on, I don't really know who's going to play and who's not. And so it just seems to me that like in general, this is like the worst possible time for an outbreak. There's if you're one of these teams that's like on the bubble, oh man, you got to be hoping you can hold it together because, if it would have happened earlier on in the year, you could argue, okay, you got plenty of time to try and make up for a COVID loss, so to speak. But at this point in the year, man, you only got a couple weeks left. It's like do or die. And so, oh, I don't know. It sucks, man. I don't like seeing it happen this way. It's like tainting the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, if you look at all the leagues are facing the same issue. Like the NHL just postponed their season till after Christmas, and like the NBA has a bunch of people out. I think like a couple days ago, the Nets played with the league minimum players because they had so many people on the COVID list.
Okay.
So it's kind of across the board. The leagues are facing this issue, but like the NHL and the NBA, they're early in their season, so you can make up for it.
Yeah, and that's the key thing for them is there's enough time to bounce back. In the NFL, it's like, man, a COVID loss right now that could tank the season, and so
Yeah.
it's just tough to see it happening at this point in the season. And I don't know, man, this Omicron, however you say it, it's I keep hearing it's 70 times more transmissible and all this stuff, and it's almost like I think I heard something about Dr. Fauci. He's like the big guy in the news all the time, saying that like everybody has a date with Omicron or Omicron because it's like it's just gonna keep going around, and it seems like we're certainly getting a spike, which is it sucks, but
Yeah.
freaking COVID, man, just won't go away. All right, so moving on. The next piece I had, um, you know, just a little fun puff piece here is Big Ben this past weekend passed Philip Rivers in passing yards, and so now he's sitting at fifth all time. Good for him. It's I guess you take some positive in what's an otherwise kind of weak season, but he's still plugging away and racking up those yards, and so hey, that's nice. He moves up one spot on the leaderboard. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, go
Who
ahead.
cares? He's just compiling stats. He should have retired after last year. Hell, he probably should have retired the year before. He's just been
You
done that
know,
long.
I hear what you're saying, but he did have a pretty good year last year up until the end.
Yeah.
And their run game started to fail, and then basically once defenses figured that out, they were able to shut down the pass. And then it really blew up on him in the playoffs. And so I could see why he thought maybe take one more run at it, but it's not going well for him.
No.
Okay, so next up I got Cooper Cup. Another record. So this past weekend, he surpassed Isaac Bruce for the most receptions in a single season for the Rams. Bruce had 119 back in 1995, and Cooper Cup is sitting at 122 with a couple games to go. I mean, it's just freaking insane, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like, I mean, I don't know what to say about Cooper Cup. He's clearly the focal point of that offense, and he's just having a phenomenal season.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And so more on that later, shall we say. Um, in more wide receiver news, in Lions news, which, I love talking about the Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he is now sitting at 65 receptions on the season, which is a new Lions single season record for a rookie. And so, congrats to him. I was thinking about it when I read it, and I'm hoping that for next year they work on expanding his route tree, maybe give him a little bit of a boost to his yards per catch. Right now, it's almost like he's reminding me a little bit of Golden Tate with the, sort of like 9, 10 yard per catch average. He's like a short, maybe a little bit of intermediate, but mostly short route kind of guy. And that's fine because we'll take whatever we can get right now. But, if he can take a step forward and they can have him running some deeper routes next year, oh man, it'd be nice to see that for a mid-round pick.
Yeah, it would be. I was pleasantly surprised with him. I didn't think the Lions had really any talent at wide receiver, and he's one of those gems that they kind of found. So we'll
Yeah,
see. We'll see what happens next year.
definitely. Yeah, and he's definitely getting the bulk of the looks because there's nobody else. And I think it bodes well for his progression. And so I'm digging it, man. I'm digging it. But in other wide receiver news, this one not as positive. It looks like Chris Godwin um, tore his ACL, going to be out for the season. Bad timing with their playoff push coming. I mean, I think it's everybody's expecting. Obviously, the Bucks are going to be in the playoffs. It takes them down a little bit of a notch without one of their top wide receivers. I did hear, and maybe this was last week, and I just wasn't paying attention in the stats or whatever, but they're supposedly getting Antonio Brown back if they didn't already. And so
No,
that'll,
it's coming this week.
oh,
He was allowed. I think it was Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday. He was back. He comes back from his suspension
gotcha.
this week,
Okay.
so he's eligible to play this coming game.
So that helps. It's not the same, but at least it helps the team. And then for Godwin, I was reading, I forgot about this, but he's in a he's in a contract year, so it's like, bad time to get wrecked like this going into free agency basically. But I'm sure he'll still get a pretty good deal. He's got a pretty good book of work, and teams, they know that. It's just going to be a matter of being patient with him coming back now.
Yeah.
And then another injury-related piece was J.J. Watt. I'm sure he had that season-ending shoulder surgery back in October. The original timeline was for him to be out 4 to 6 months. With the Cardinals solidly in the playoff hunt, he's basically saying he's rejecting that he's out for the season, and he's going to try and get back in time for the playoffs. Um, I did see something about Ian Rappaport describing it as like a quote unquote long shot. Um, Man, and I don't know, he's been a pretty phenomenal player over the course of his career, but it seems like in recent years he just keeps getting hit by the injury bug. And, you know, I get it. It could be like one of these rare events for him to have like a playoff run on a team, but it's like I'm looking at both sides of the coin here. It's like, should he push it and risk more injury? Or is it like, hey, you might not be in the playoffs again. You might as well see if you can do something. I don't know, man. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm kind of getting the sense a little bit that this is probably going to be his. I'm kind of thinking this is he's close nearing retirement and he wants to get that playoff push in just in case this ends up being it for
Okay.
him. I mean, he's been in what is he like? He's in his mid 30s,
Yeah,
is he?
yeah, I'd have to look it up, but it's like you go back now, however many years, and he's dealing with something every season now, and it
Yeah.
just, his body's starting to go on him, and typically as you get older, you don't all of a sudden just get stronger and healthier, and so, yeah, I suppose if you know that the seasons are coming to an end, maybe you push it and you see if you can get back for the playoffs, and it'd be pretty cool if he could. I think just as long as he can be productive. If he pushes it and comes back and he's not as good as he should be, you argue, hey, it's better to let somebody else make the play and get the call. But or if you get hurt and you're planning on coming back next year, well, then it could mess that up too. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens.
He's actually younger than I thought. He was 89, so it's what, 32?
Yeah, but you know, he's a
But I mean,
big
it
guy.
is.
He's taken a lot of abuse, on that
Yeah.
defensive line.
Also, didn't never realize that he started out his college career at Central.
Oh,
But
dude.
I always
I
forget
know
that.
I've told you this. I know
Yeah,
I've
I
told
know.
you this.
I know you've told
Yeah,
me this too. It's just I always
yeah.
always forget about that. But yeah, he was
So,
what, like his 12th season, 11th season?
so yeah. Let me tell you this, and it's a long time ago now, and I'm sure if Brian Kelly ever listened to our show, he'd probably sue us for talking about him because he's a piece of shit. But the story I heard about J.J. Watt at Central was that Brian Kelly wanted to move him to offensive line, and he said, "Hey, or no, 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 I'm sorry, he wanted to move him to like tight end or something, or maybe it was offensive line." But basically, J.J. Watt was like, "No way, I'm not doing it," and so he transferred to Wisconsin, and obviously, it's history from there. But yeah, either way, it's like, hey, Brian Kelly missed that one, so whatever.
Yeah, he as it says he was started out he was there as a tight end and they wanted to move him to offensive tackle.
Yeah, there we go. That's what it was. Thank you. All right. So well, not the last thing I got, but one other thing I got here is talking about Le'Veon Bell. I saw he's signing with the Bucks pending a physical. which, by the way, James, was an issue for him getting on the field in Baltimore. So we'll see if the signing actually goes through or not. But it made headlines because Leonard Fournette looks like he's going to be out maybe for an extended period of time. They've got Ronald Jones, he's solid, and they've got Keyshawn Vaughn, who he's depth. I wouldn't say he's like necessarily solid, but he's good enough. But with Fournette out, Giovanni Bernard's also out. They just wanted to fill in that running back room, and so we'll see if those other guys get healthy. It'll be a short-lived signing, but it gets Le'Veon Bell back in the mix here for the time being.
Well, if I remember correctly, Fournette went on IR this week.
Yeah, is it short term or is it, you know, that's
Yeah,
the
I,
piece that I missed. Is it going to be for the duration or is it just a couple weeks?
I, yeah, I don't know. I haven't, I
Yeah.
didn't hear anything besides they put him on IR. I forget what his injury was. Trying to look real quick, but it felt like, oh, I guess he's not on IR. He's just doubtful.
Okay. But
It was,
I did see something that they were talking about putting him on IR, so it may still
yeah,
happen.
it may still happen, but it's a hamstring injury.
Okay. Yeah, so most likely short term, even if he goes to IR. But that's good. That's good for them. Okay, so the last thing I got is Tyler Huntley, the Baltimore Ravens backup quarterback. Man, um, you know, I hope you got to watch some of that game, man,
Hmm.
because he freaking impressed me. And, coming off the bench like that, very mobile of a quarterback. And the dude has got a live arm. I mean, I've got to believe this guy's going to be trade bait after the season because that was showing off to a lot of teams.
Yeah, well, he has a weird situation at the end of the season. His contract ends this year, but it's like Baltimore has it's like he's a restricted free agent basically. They have the right to match any contract he's offered.
Okay.
So but yeah, I agree. He's either going to be trade bait or I mean hell, maybe sign him for less than what they would sign Lamar for because he plays like I mean passing the ball like he looks better than Lamar at times. So
I did like the way he passes, man. I mean, the ball looked good coming off his arm, and so it's one game, so how much can you really dump into that? I don't know, but he
well,
looked
it's
good to
been
me,
more
man.
than one. It's been more than one game. It's been a few. Like he started a
Yeah, he's
game or two in place of Lamar, and like he impressed in that game too. So it's been a couple games. They have some film on him, and he looks impressive on both and looked impressive on both games. I forget what game it was, but it was whatever game Lamar missed. Maybe Chargers game.
yeah, I'm not sure, but either way, hey, let's keep an eye on this guy, man.
Trying to glance real quick to see what game it was, but I mean he had good stats, and let me see. Who's Green Bay? It was the Browns game,
Okay,
and it looks like he also played either started or played the majority of. Okay, so the Browns game was when Lamar got hurt. So he looked good in that game. He had 270 yards passing, and then against Chicago he had 219 yards passing on 26 completions.
okay.
But he threw an interception. It's just he just was getting better. I mean he's done pretty decent in the games he's played and or started. So
Yeah, and he's a dual threat, and that's kind of in today's NFL. If you've got that, it's definitely a little bit of a game changer. So
yeah,
I'm interested to see what happens with this guy, man. He definitely impressed me. All right,
definitely.
so news-wise, that's all I got, man. Was there anything I missed or anything you picked up on that you want to You want to mention?
The only thing I picked up on was, and now the NFL hasn't confirmed this, but the three games they moved, like the Raiders, Browns games, the Eagles, Washington game, and the Rams Seahawks game,
Mm-hmm.
the NFL actually almost canceled those games.
Oh, wow. But they didn't.
Like like the NFLPA basically had to had to fight the league, and they were pushing the league to keep the games and just reschedule them.
Okay.
This was a tweet or something that the NFLPA president said, that there was like, the headline is the NFLPA president says NFL nearly canceled three games that were rescheduled.
Huh. Well, I mean, this means nothing in the grand scheme of things, but that would fuck up some fantasy football playoffs.
Oh yeah, it would.
Oh man. Not that that means anything, but I was just thinking about that because I was just checking my lineup in one of my leagues, and so I've got a handful of guys on the fucking COVID list, and I'm like, fucking A, man, going into the second round of the playoffs, not a good fucking look.
Yeah, I didn't make it to the second in our league. I didn't make it to the second round of the playoffs. I got knocked out. I made some mistakes and started, like, I mean, who would have thought Jamar Chase would have had 3 yards receiving?
Oh shit. Yeah, after the year he's had. Phew.
Yeah,
So
it's
did
like,
you? Well, let me ask you. So did you just miss on your lineup, or did you have guys on the bench that if you'd have played it right, they would have gotten you the win, or was it just wasn't meant to happen?
I lost by 9 points, and
I mean, but you wouldn't have benched Chase. And so even if you had a guy that scored more on the bench, you probably wouldn't have done that. But did you have other guys that you could have swapped and you could have made the argument for it and you just went the wrong way?
yeah, well, like, I started Ramondre Stevenson at running back and had Robinson as my flex, and I could have put AJ Green or Moore in there. That would
Okay.
have been a couple points, but, and then Van Jefferson instead of one of those two as well. So I definitely, I mean, I wouldn't have benched Chase, but, like, if I would have made, I think it was, if I would have made two of those decisions differently, I probably would have won.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah. Well, hopefully you don't lose too much sleep at night.
Yeah, well, the guy I'm playing is a cheater anyways. He has Mike Williams on IR, or listed on IR, and he's not hasn't been on IR for weeks.
Oh. Um, well, you should write your commissioner.
I I would complain about it, but I looked at his bench, and he had basically everyone else on his bench was on the COVID list.
Okay. So yeah, so he could have swapped it out if he updated things.
Yeah,
So it was 6-1, half a dozen another. I gotcha.
so it was like, oh well, I'm not gonna really complain much about it.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, moving on, man. Let's get to our Week 16 power rankings. I'm pulling up my spreadsheet, as I'm sure you are as well. Why don't you give me 1 through 5, James?
Oh well, shit, I completely fucked that up. Hold on.
I'll give you 1 through 5 while I'm waiting on you. How about that?
Oh no, I just have to move it up because I didn't realize I was down. So just give me one second.
Sure.
There we go. All right, so at number one, I have Green Bay. They moved up 3 spots to number one. Green Bay, as much as I knocked them earlier in the season, they're looking solid. They're clearly the best team in the NFC right now. Aaron Rodgers is on a roll, and they're just playing better and better every week. And number two, I have the Rams. They moved up 3 spots as well. With the Rams, the Rams are hit and miss. They would be the number one team if Stafford was being more consistent this year, but he hasn't been as consistent as he needs to be to take over that number one spot. At number three, I dropped the Cardinals only down 2 spots to number 3, even though they lost to Detroit. This was kind of like everything around them. People lost, or there was people dropping, and they're probably, if they have another week like they played against the Lions, where they were thoroughly outcoached, thoroughly outplayed, which is bad when you're talking about the Lions, and they'll probably drop out of my top 10 because they've kind of been faltering again this year, just like that happened last year at the end of the season.
Yeah.
At number 4, this is a mistake on. Actually, I'm going to change this. At number 4, I have the Colts.
Okay.
They just beat New England, which was my number 3 team on there. They just beat New England. The Colts they're just getting better and better and better, and so I put them up to number 4. At number 5, I have New England. This kind of flipped from what I told you. I dropped them down 2 spots, but to below the Colts. I didn't catch it when I did my power rankings at the first time, but New England is clearly a top 5 team. They're beating everybody they need to beat. That defense is playing dominant, with the exception of the Colts game. I think the offense kind of faltered in the first half of the Colts game. That's kind of what killed them a little bit for the loss. So it's interesting. I still think they're probably, if not the best team right now, one of the 2 best teams in the AFC that have a really good shot to make the Super Bowl this year.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and I wasn't quite as nice with my bump of the Colts, but we'll get there. And not that I was like, dogging them. I'm just I'm waiting maybe for another win before I really skyrocket them up the board, which I want to do. I think they got all the talent to be higher on the board. But so for me, I got Green Bay at 1. I moved them up 1 spot, and it was basically a flip. I had the Rams at 1, and I just rotated them, even though both teams won. We kind of talked about it last week, and I think you were making the comment, about, you just trust Rodgers more than you do Stafford. And so at this late in the season, I'm thinking about the playoffs, and I'm just like, yeah, I would trust Rodgers much more, even though I like McVay a hell of a lot as a coach and a play caller. And I think the Rams have a shitload of talent on both sides of the ball. Green Bay's a damn good team, man. They won the NFC North already, another 11-win season. LaFleur, say what you want about the guy. He just finds ways to keep winning every year. It's impressive. And so then at 3, I got the Chiefs. And, they had in my opinion, a solid win against a good opponent. And it ends up being a good bump for them. I moved them up 3 spots, partly because of the quality win, but then partly because a handful of my teams in my top 5, 3 out of my top 5 actually lost. And so I just basically said, okay, Kansas City's won 7 straight now. I'm going to jump them over. We're going to shuffle everybody below them. And then at 4, I've got Dallas. Might be a little bit aggressive, but I moved them up 4 spots. And I'm just going to roll with it, man. I think their defense has been legit this year with Dan Quinn as their defensive coordinator. The offense, most weeks, they're freaking electric. They've had a couple duds here and there, like when Dak came back from injury. But, I think for the most part, Dallas, man, they can make some moves. And then at 5, I got Tampa Bay. I dropped them down 1, and I could have done more. I could have dropped them more. Honestly, getting shut out is not a good look. And it's weird. Like, this loss makes me feel like when I look across the league, it's like, man, there's just really not like that one freaking dominant team this year that you just feel like is going to walk away with it. It just seems like every week we're kind of looking at this top group and we're like, oh man, I don't know. Like, maybe these guys are better. Maybe those guys are better. Then somebody loses and you got to like restack the deck and whatever. And so, either way, that's my top 5. And, hey, back to you at 6, man.
At 6, I have the Chiefs. They got a 4-spot bump. I had the Chargers at 6 last week, and take away the final score. of the game, it was closer than the game actually was against the Chargers. The Chiefs thoroughly dominated the game, in my opinion,
Okay.
and they've been consistently doing that for the last couple of weeks, and so I'm finally bumping them up. They're probably going to end up in my top five. Depends on what happens this weekend, but they got a 4 spot bump this week. At number 7, I had the Cowboys. I have the Cowboys. I had the Cowboys at 7 last week. I just don't trust the Cowboys. Yeah, they beat the Giants. Big whoop.
True.
Little Sisters of the Poor probably could beat the Giants this year. Giants are just terrible. At number 8, I have the Bills. I had them at 8 last week. They stayed at 8 this week. They beat Carolina, which is expected. Interestingly, apparently this week, Carolina, they're starting Cam, but Darnold's going to play, which I didn't know Darnold was back from injury. It was like, why are they wasting their time? But the Bills they're just too inconsistent to be much higher than 8 right now.
Yeah.
At number 9 is my biggest drop of the week. I dropped the Bucks down 8 spots. This is a combination of being shut out against the Saints, and the fact, the Saints only scored 9 points on them, but all the injuries that happened in Tampa Bay gives me a lot of concern. Without Godwin, without Fournette, this offense is going to look completely different. I think they put a defensive end on IR this week. They're being decimated with injuries, much like Baltimore is, and I just want to see how they react, but I have to temper my expectations for them.
Okay.
And at number 10, I have the Chargers. I dropped them down 4 spots. Basically, this is a flip. I just flipped the Chiefs and the Chargers positioning from last week.
Gotcha. All right. For me, over at 6, I got the Cardinals. I dropped them down 3 spots. And honestly, it's tough, James. I felt like we could have knocked them down a lot farther. But I do believe teams are allowed to have a bad week here and there. And so 3 spots was, I thought, appropriate on my side here. At 7, I got the Patriots. I dropped them down 2. It was a tough loss, but like we talked about, it's still young quarterback, a team that's still retooling and trying to gel, and mostly they're getting there. And I think that they're still going to be dangerous come playoff time. At 8, I got the Titans. I dropped them down 1 spot. These guys are dealing with a slew of injuries, and it's good they've got A.J. Brown coming back this week. That'll give them a boost. But they're struggling. They're 1-3 or one win, 3 losses out of their last 4, and so they kind of got this choppy season going here, which makes me nervous. At 9, I got the Bills. I moved them up 1 spot. It's great they got the win over Carolina, but it was expected, and I'm just, despite all the talent, man, I'm still having a hard time trusting them. At 10, I got the Chargers. I dropped them down 1. And, I'll have to go back and look at that one because, the way that I didn't watch the whole game, but I read a little bit about it after. And I just heard that basically had it not been for them just like constantly going for it on 4th down, and maybe they took a little bit of a different strategy, it might have had a different outcome. And so it sounded to me like they gave him a run for the money, but you're saying, from what you watched, it wasn't quite the same.
Yeah, and it could have been more of a feel than actual game flow for it. It felt to me like when I watched the game, it felt to me like the Chiefs were basically able to do what they wanted to do.
Stat-wise, if you look at the stats, it definitely seems like Mahomes and Kelsey, just like classic Mahomes and Kelsey, lit it up, man.
Yeah, so it's just how it felt to me. Looking at it, it doesn't look that way on the box score quarter by quarter and then on the win probability on ESPN, it doesn't look that way. It looks like pretty much an even game, but it felt like the Chiefs were dominant, and that could also be because of the end of the game, with how the game ended and how Mahomes was just basically able to do whatever the fuck he wanted in the 4th quarter.
Okay. Good stuff. All right, so back to you at 11, man.
All right, at 11, I have the Bengals. They got a three-spot bump. I know I gave them a three-spot bump for beating Denver, but they won in Denver, and a couple teams ahead of them dropped below them. So it was really like a one-spot bump, and a couple teams fell. So that's how they got the other two spots. At 12, it's the Saints. They got a four-spot bump. By all means, that was not an impressive win over the Bucks. It was nine to nothing, 6-0, whatever the hell it was.
9-0, yeah.
It's this was not an impressive win, but also teams ahead of them struggled this past week and lost games that I felt that they shouldn't lose. So they got a little bit of an extra bump because of that. 13, I have the Titans. Now, I really wanted to kill them and really wanted to destroy them for losing to Pittsburgh. All season, I've been dogging Pittsburgh and how bad Pittsburgh is. And they truly are a bad team. But it's just everybody else around them, like a lot of teams below them, lost. So,
okay,
what was that to do? 14 Browns. It's kind of the same situation. I didn't want to kill the Browns for losing to Vegas on a last second field goal or as time expired. But the thing
it
was
was a COVID week for the Browns.
Exactly.
Man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was a COVID week, and the Browns were extremely hurt by their substitute teacher coaches. The play calling, that last drive after Derek Carr threw the interception, I mean, they did three. It was a 3-and-out. They did 3 runs. If they throw the ball, get the first down, they probably would have been able to eat up the rest of the clock and win the game 14-13. But they just did 3 runs. The clock was about to stop anyways because of the 2-minute warning, and the coaches just didn't do them any justice in that game.
Gotcha.
At 15, I have the 49ers. The 49ers beat Atlanta, and it was dominant. It was a dominant performance. But Atlanta sucks this year. I mean, we'll get into Atlanta a little bit later, and we'll also talk about them in the picks because I think we both have the same pick for that game. But it's just Atlanta is terrible. You should beat the shit out of Atlanta, and the 49ers did.
I like the way you said that. You should beat the shit out of them. Oh, that's awesome. All right. At 11, I got the Colts. I moved them up 2 spots. I definitely like the win over the Patriots, and I've got them closing the gap. You know, I didn't want to move them up too high because I still right now feel like if these teams met in the playoffs, I think the Patriots would get them. At 12, I got Baltimore. I didn't move them from where they were at despite the loss. It was against the top team on my board, and I felt like, with them having a backup quarterback, that was a hell of a close game. And so I gave them some credit for that. 13, I got the Browns. I dropped them down 2 spots. Tough with the COVID week, honestly. And they've got guys getting back this week. They got Stefanski back and Mayfield back. When they're healthy, they can compete with pretty much any team. But they have been losing. They're 7-7 overall, and so it's just kind of I had to slide them a little bit. At 14, I got the 49ers. Like you mentioned, nice win, but it was against a shit team. And then honestly, like them plus the next 3 on my board, they basically got stuck in gridlock with the way that the teams above them and below them moved. It kind of locked them all in their place, whether they won or lost. And so the 49ers stayed put. And then at 15, the Bengals, same thing. I really, I've been hot and cold on the Bengals this year, man. I really have. And, there was that brutal hit on Bridgewater. I'm not sure that would have changed the outcome of that game. But it's like if Cincinnati would have scored even one more touchdown, I think it would have gotten me excited to get back on the bandwagon. But because it was still such a close game, I'm just a little bit hesitant, man. I don't know what it is. I'm just like I can't like fully commit to being behind the Bengals. Even though I love Burrow, I love Jamar Chase, I love everything they're doing. I'm just not there yet. Back to you at 16, man.
At 16, I have the Ravens. I dropped them down 3 spots. Yeah, it was a close game against Green Bay, but there's a couple things I'm seeing about Harbaugh this year. Like, is it John or Jim? Whichever one coaches. Jim?
John.
Or is it John? I get them confused. So the thing I'm seeing about Harbaugh this year is to claim to be have analytics guide you a little bit and making the analytical decision. He's really fucking up decisions.
He's going for a lot of 2-point conversions.
So he's going for a lot of 2-point conversions, but he's going for the 2-point conversions at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And if you look at the analytics for the game, the right time to go for the 2-point conversion was when they scored a touchdown with 4:47 left. Not the last touchdown, but with 42 seconds left. But the touchdown before that. That's when you go for the two-point conversion based on the analytics.
Okay.
And then to go for 2 with 42 seconds left on the clock, giving the ball back to Aaron Rodgers, if you're playing a team and you're tied against that team, the team's going to be maybe a little bit more conservative, trying to drive the field and might not get the field goal, and you'll go into overtime. Versus if you go up by a point, then they're going to have to get that field goal, so they're going to press it a little bit more. And with Aaron Rodgers, he's not going to make a mistake there. So either way, if they got that 2-point conversion, they were going to lose the game.
I like that logic. Yeah.
But if they kick the extra point there, then Rodgers will have the ability to be a little bit passive, because you'll go into overtime and then it's a coin flip.
It's anybody's
who wins
game.
Exactly.
I gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of dropped them. And I liked the call against Pittsburgh. I didn't like the play call against Pittsburgh. I liked the call to go for 2 against Pittsburgh, but the play call was a piece of shit play call. Like, he locked in on Andrews, cut off the opposite side of the field, and it's just Harbaugh's decisions are causing this team to lose, and that's concerning. So that's why they got the 3-spot drop after losing such a close game to Green Bay.
Okay.
At 17, I have the Raiders. They bumped up 1 spot. This is more because Washington looked very inconsistent yesterday than the Raiders being winning. Yeah, they beat the Browns. It was a COVID week. They got lucky to beat the Browns. They got really lucky because the substitute coaches fucked up for the Browns, which gave the Raiders the game. But Washington at number 18, they kind of looked like shit yesterday. Like, they started off a little bit and they were doing okay, and then they just kind of dropped off. And it was again a COVID week, and they had 20 some players on COVID in COVID protocols, or possibly ineligible, and I get all that, but I was not impressed by them at all. They didn't. I wanted them to show me a little bit of fight, and it's like they rolled over in the second half to me and just let Jalen Hurts do what he wanted to.
Gotcha.
At 19, I have Miami. They got a 2-spot increase after who they beat.
Miami beat the Jets.
After beating the Jets. Concerning that they beat the Jets, and the Jets are terrible, but they barely beat the Jets. I don't think Tua looked very good, and it's just like, I have concerns, but I'm kind of realigning them a little bit to where they've been playing lately versus when I killed them and dropped them way down.
Sure.
At 20, I have the Broncos. The Broncos, it was kind of fortuitous for the Broncos that Bridgewater went out, and I'm not asking for an injury, but Bridgewater was playing like shit in that game.
Okay.
And he looked terrible prior to getting injured. And then, they lost by 5 points, and you got the full spectrum of the Drew Lock experience. He looked good at times. He looked like shit at times. You just got the full spectrum of it.
Yeah.
But it was their backup quarterback that went into the game, and they still kept the game close. So I didn't want to kill them for losing to Cincinnati. Plus, I have Cincinnati so much higher than them on the board. It's just, I left them at 20.
I gotcha. Okay, so kicking it over my way, I got the Dolphins at 16. I kept them where they were at. This is still the gridlock I got on my board. I do like that they've won six straight now. I think that's pretty good. But yeah, they could have been a little bit more clean in that game. It's 17. I got the Vikings. Um, Man, it was wild. I saw that they got the win over Chicago with only 61 passing yards. That's all they needed. That just goes to show you how shitty Chicago is this year.
I thought it was 87, but that's okay. Whatever. It's
Okay, yeah, under 100, under 100. Uh,
yeah.
at 18, I got Pittsburgh. I moved them up one spot. You know, I'm giving them a bump, but they did play against a hobbled Tennessee team, and so I'm just trying to keep it in perspective. I think they're still having a rough year. At 19, I got the Saints. I moved them up two spots, and I wanted to move them up higher, but I just feel like it's such a disappointing season for them. It's hard to get too excited. Sometimes these divisional games, you nip a guy, and so I liked it, but I'm not gonna like put too much weight into it like they're that much better. They're kind of like they are who we thought they were at this point. I don't know. And then at 20, I got Washington. I dropped them down two spots. With the COVID stuff, we knew that they would lose that game. And so it is what it is. I think the bigger issue is what's going to happen this week because I hear that they're still dealing with a lot of COVID stuff and probably going to have a backup quarterback playing again this week. And so that sucks. Back to you at 21, man.
All right, so at 21, I have the Steelers, and they got jumped up four spots. This was more of the four teams directly in front of them. I thought looked like shit this past week, and I thought the Steelers just looked that much better than them, so I moved the Steelers ahead
Okay.
of those teams. At 22, I have the Seahawks. They dropped three spots. It still feels high for the Seahawks, but it still feels high. That team is done. Interesting thing that I read this week. Like of the teams that can still make the playoffs in the NFC, like teams are eliminated that can still make the playoffs can't get the number one spot. They can't get the first number one overall seed. Like only certain teams can. But when you look at the AFC for the playoffs, basically every team that still is still could mathematically qualify for the playoffs will end up in either spot. Like they could end up in either spot 1 through 7. Like
Huh.
they can end up in every single spot and no team is eliminated from any spot, which I thought was weird.
Yeah.
But that's random. The Seahawks technically can, I believe they technically can still make the playoffs, but and they also it's also going to be Russell Wilson's first losing season. Mathematically, it has to be a losing season for him, and his first losing season of his career. It's just they're done. Like I mean, Russ is going to end up somewhere else next year, and they're going through a full rebuild, which makes that Jamal Adams trade a terrible trade because
Yep.
the Jets have their first round pick, which is going to be a top 10 pick this year.
Oh yeah.
23, I have the Eagles. They won, yes. Dropped down one spot. I just am not liking what I'm seeing from the Eagles. It's an experience. They're probably gonna end up with another quarterback, which is a shame because I like what I see out of Jalen Hurts. It's just
Yeah.
they have a lot of bad luck, and I'm kind of killing them for that bad luck. Like the interception that Hurts threw, where Goddard dropped the ball, it bounced off his foot right into whoever the DB's hand. It's like, how the fuck does that happen?
Yeah, that stuff can't happen, man.
Yeah, but that bad luck and the ball bouncing against them kind of made me drop them a spot instead of boost them up.
Okay.
At 24, the Vikings. This is another one that won, but they dropped down a spot. Look, they played Chicago and they barely beat Chicago. Kirk Cousins won the game somehow, even though he had another shitty performance in prime time. I don't know how the fuck the Vikings won the game. And you were right. It was 61 yards team passing, but Cousins had 87 yards. So it was like
Okay.
the difference was the sacks because sacks come off team passing yards.
Okay.
So, but they don't come off of Cousins passing stats. So he was sacked 4 times for negative 26 yards, and that's how it ended up at 61 for team stats. At 25, I have the Falcons.
That's all you gotta say. At 25, you
I
got the
have the
Falcons.
Falcons. The only reason why they're still in the top 25 is because I didn't feel comfortable putting the the two possible teams that I could in the top 25 because those teams need to prove it a little bit more to me.
Yeah, there's still a gap there. I got you. Okay, so for me at 21, I got Denver. I dropped them down a spot. I think we kind of covered Denver pretty well at this point. 22, I got Philly. And this is like a whole nother section of gridlock on my board. I've got Philly next, and then the Raiders after them at 23. Both of them, COVID weeks. I'm not bumping them despite the wins. 24 through 28, I got them in gridlock. At 24, it's the Seahawks. You know, they're just they're just sucking. All these teams are sucking, and so it doesn't like. And honestly, they all lost, and so it's like, what does it matter? They're just stuck on my board. 25, Atlanta, same thing, same thing. Back to you, 26, man.
26, I have the Lions. They gave them a 3 spot jump for winning, and again, this is more because of the fact that the teams right in front of them look even right that I had right in front of them look even worse. Not because they beat Arizona. Arizona's been playing like shit, and yeah, the Lions thoroughly outplayed them this past week, but I don't think they can be that consistent. Well, they'll probably win this week because they're playing the Falcons, and we all know the Falcons suck. Uh, at 27, I have, and which also pisses me off because I came this close to fucking changing my pick from fucking
Oh,
Arizona to Detroit. Like I almost did it. I
I know,
almost did
dude.
it,
You
and
you,
I
you were
was like,
talking about it. You were talking
and
about it.
I just couldn't pull the trigger. I chickened out, and I
You
should have
chickened
just
out.
I should have gone with my gut. 27, I have the Texans. Interestingly, I knocked, was it Davis Mills? Not
Yes,
Davis what? Davis Mills. I knock him as a quarterback, but statistically, he's been the second best rookie quarterback this year.
he's been pretty good, man. Especially for a guy that not a first round pick. You know,
Yeah,
like it's
not a first round pick on a team that's completely devoid of talent, and
yes.
plus the teams right in front of them, Carolina Panthers, New York Jets, Chicago Bears. That's 28, 29, and 30. All look even worse than Houston's looking.
I like Davis Mills. I think he's a very intelligent quarterback, and he's going to hang around the league for a while. I just am not sure he could be a starter unless he has some kind of a big jump in his talent. And like, right now he's showing that he can be a game manager type quarterback where he's efficient, he's smart with the ball, he's not causing a bunch of turnovers. Um, but he just he, at least what he's at right now is the making of a career backup and
Mm-hmm.
probably a high end career backup.
Yeah, high.
If yeah, if he can take one step forward, he starts to flirt with that. Maybe he could start long term kind of stuff. But he's a rookie. Let's give him time and see if he gets there.
Yeah, he's somewhere talent wise, he's somewhere between 33 and 37.
Yeah, I like it, man. I like it. That's
And
that's
and
that's a good
I'm
that's a good
counting a
draft pick.
backup. I'm counting a backup in there in the top 32 because the one that's not in the top 32 that's a starter and not and probably in that same range is Daniel Jones.
Okay, I got you. Uh, yeah, hey, it's good stuff. No, I think they got a nice value pick with him, and we'll see what happens. I mean, they're going to have a high draft pick, so they're probably going to go quarterback. But I don't think that there's pressure for them to do that because They're similar to the Lions in that they've got a long-term rebuild. And so if there's more value to take somebody else, if I'm them, I'd roll with Davis Mills for one more season. See if he progresses, and maybe you found a diamond in the rough with the guy. And if he doesn't progress, well, then it's next year that you go after that quarterback. That's just my opinion on how I'd play it.
Yeah, well, also I've said it before. Like this rookie class coming in the quarterback, none of them impressed me.
Yep.
So I don't think
Another reason to be patient.
exactly.
All right. So I think you got to hit Carolina and these guys still?
Yeah, I just kind of went through them. Like they're playing, all three of them are playing like shit and at about the
Okay.
same level. Carolina, the Giants, and the Bears.
I got you. Okay. Yeah, and I'm pretty similar with that on my board. I got the Giants at 26, the Panthers at 27, the Bears at 28. They all lost. They're all gridlocked where they're at on my board. At 29, I got the Lions. I moved them up a spot. I was awfully tempted to move them higher, but I'm trying to be careful. It's easy to drink the Lions Kool-Aid, and they still only got a couple of wins, man. So I want to see them get at least another one, and then maybe I'll start getting giddy. But I do see the fight in the team, and I see the charisma with the coach, and the players like that. And it's, man, I just, yeah, I don't know. I like where the Lions are going, even though they're like at ground zero still. At 30, I've got the Jets. I dropped them down one spot. And, I mean, hey, they lost. Big whoop. They went down at one spot. It's not the end of the world. They're pretty much near the bottom of the barrel as it is. So, back to you, man. Dumpster fire.
At 31, I have the Jets. They lost. Yeah, they lost, but also my 32 Jaguars, they lost. So they basically 31-32 stayed the same for me.
Okay. So for me at 31, I got Houston. I moved them up one spot since they beat Jacksonville. I thought, hey, it's time to flip them. And then Jacksonville at 32. I'll say this with Houston. I picked up the stat. They've now won 8 straight games against Jacksonville. That's a lot, man, for a divisional rivalry like that. And then with the Jags at 32, man, they're just pathetic, dude. Another week without a passing touchdown for Trevor Lawrence. Holy shit. Somebody needs to be calling for this guy's head because all the hype he got going into the draft, I don't care if you say shitty coaching or whatever, they've got enough weapons on offense. He should be doing a hell of a lot better than this. This, in my opinion, it's just as much on Trevor Lawrence as it is on the coaching.
I can see that, yeah.
Okay, so moving on here. Let's go over, let's do our week 16 game picks. And we'll start off just by doing our quick recap. Season to date, James, you're sitting at 127 wins, good for 57%. I'm sitting at 131 wins, good for 59%. Razor thin, dude, razor thin. This past week, no movement between the two of us, but anything could happen. We got a couple weeks, we're close enough. Things could shift pretty quickly, just like they did a few weeks ago. You caught up on me quite a bit. And so let's look at tomorrow night. We've got the 49ers at the Titans. Who do you like there, man?
All right. So and like I know, I've been kicking it back and forth, and I think I'm going to stay with the Titans. Like, I just, it's more of a gut feel type thing for me than really thinking the Titans are that much better than the 49ers right now. It's just kind of a gut feel on it that
Sure.
the Titans will outplay the 49ers and win. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, just leave it at that. That's fine. And I went back and forth. My original pick was Tennessee. I kind of thought, man, so many things are equal to me as I weighed the pros and cons. And so I wanted to give Tennessee the edge because they were the home team. Then I kind of started looking back at it the other way, and I'm like, man, I don't know. Tennessee, they don't have any momentum right now. Like we talked about, they're one win, 3 losses in their last 4. They're going the wrong way. San Francisco, on the other hand, it seems like they're picking up a little bit of steam. And Nick Bosa has been on a tear. And so I'm kind of just like, I'm giving it to San Francisco. And, I think you make the case either way. I just wanted to go with a little bit of the team that had more momentum, in my opinion.
Which makes
Uh,
sense.
yeah, yeah. And, who knows? Any given Sunday, or in this case, Thursday. So going on to the weekend, we got Cleveland at Green Bay. Who do you like there, man?
Is Green Bay honestly going to lose a game coming the rest of the regular season? I mean, they have Cleveland, who's been playing like shit as of late. They have who else? I'm trying to remember who else they have, but it's like, don't they still have to play the Lions again?
I
And
believe so, yeah.
it's like, who are they going to lose to in their remaining schedule? It's ridiculous, and they've already clinched the division, but Cleveland's playing too much like shit. The Rodgers and Packers are on too much of a roll, so it's definitely going to be the Packers making this game. It's Cleveland, Minnesota, and then Detroit.
Okay. Yeah, I think you got to go with Green Bay here. It's great that Stefanski and Mayfield are both expected to be back for the Browns, but Green Bay just clinched the NFC North, and they're likely highly motivated to go for a top playoff seed. So I'm with you, man. They're trying to win out. There's no taking your foot off the gas when it's as tight of a race for that top seed in the NFC anyhow. And so I'm going Green Bay as well. Next up, we got the Colts at the Cardinals.
This is an interesting game. Arizona is kind of on the decline. The Colts are coming on quick. I think Indianapolis is just playing that much better than Arizona right now, so I'm gonna go with the Colts.
Nice. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going with the Colts. It does seem like Arizona's reeling all of a sudden. And I mean, just looking at this past week, Detroit ran all over them with a third string running back. And I like Craig Reynolds, but I mean, he's a third string running back that was sitting on the couch just a couple months ago.
Hmm.
And if Arizona can't figure that out, I don't know how the hell they're going to be figuring out Jonathan Taylor. And so I think Indy's in a very favorable position to get this one. Next up, we got the Giants at the Eagles.
Well, back to Arizona. One thing that to look out for, it's thinking about it, that could have been the ultimate trap game because
Okay.
they just played the Rams.
Yeah.
Then they had Detroit, and then this coming week they play the Colts. So it's that terrible team sandwich between two good teams. So that could possibly be what the issue was, but I don't think so. It's just kind of hedge it a little bit before we see more.
Sure.
All right, back to the probably the second worst game of the week. Giants at the Eagles. It's going to be the Eagles because the Giants is it Jake Fromm that's starting for the Giants this week?
I think I heard something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they put Daniel Jones on or shut him down for the season. Uh, I
Yeah.
think it
Mike
is
Glennon was,
Mike Lennon is injured or in COVID something, one of the two, and then I think their next man up is Jake Fromm, whoever was ahead of Glenn. I forget their.
yeah,
Okay,
their
so
depth chart. Yeah.
possibly Glennon because I'm not seeing him on the injury report, but I mean it's like it's going to be Mike Glennon or it's going to be Jake Fromm, and do we really have faith in
No.
either one of them? No. And wait,
Uh-oh.
this
Something messing with you here?
no, it's did they announce that Jake Fromm is starting?
I mean, hey, I just think
I'm
when you
with the
look at,
Eagles.
yeah, I think when you look at this matchup, Philly, even though the record isn't the greatest, they're playing inspiring football. Every week, you're seeing a little bit of magic, even though they may not be getting the wins. The Giants, they have not played any kind of inspiring football this entire season. And they've even had situations where guys like Kenny Galladay have been getting called out for basically giving up in games. And so it's just, you can't take the Giants, man. I'm going with the Eagles on this one for sure.
They haven't played any kind of inspiring football for the last like 4 seasons. What are you talking about this season?
Well, I mean, yeah, if you want to go back, I think you're right. I think you're right.
It's been what, like, I think I heard it. There is, it's been 10 years since their last playoff win, which was the Super Bowl. They went
Yeah,
over the
shutting down the
the
freaking
Patriots.
Patriots. Yeah, man,
Yeah,
that was a freaking great Super Bowl, by the way. But
yeah.
yeah, there's not been much going on since then. Okay, so next up we got the Rams at the Vikings.
This game concerns me a little bit with my pick because that NFC North, Stafford tends to play pretty shitty against them in his
Dude.
career. Um, it's just he didn't have a good game against Green Bay a couple weeks ago. I don't think he played that well against the Lions either. I'm trying to remember Bears. He looked good against the Bears but that was first game of the season, opening weekend or whatever. But I just kind of think he's struggled against them. Those the old stomping grounds. He gets to go back to them. I got to go with the Rams just because they're that much better than Minnesota. But I'm concerned about Stafford being consistent and having he had two decent games in a row, and that third game is concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, honestly, I think you broke it down pretty well. I was surprised to see that the line on this game is only given Minnesota 3 points. And so it made me wonder, does that have something to do with Stafford and, maybe him having some flashbacks of when he was with the Lions getting his ass kicked by the NFC North every year? Or, maybe it's they still got some lingering COVID issues with the Rams because they did have a ton of guys go on the COVID list last week as well. But either way, it does make me wonder what's going on there. I'm still going with the Rams, but I agree. There's maybe something going on here that we got to keep an eye on. Next up, we got the Bills at the Patriots.
So I thought it would be reversed. I kind of figured coming into the season and as the season progressed that the Bills and the Patriots would split their two games. I thought it was going to be the Patriots were going to lose in Buffalo and win in Foxborough. I'm going
Yeah.
to stick with they're splitting the games and Buffalo's going to win. This is going to be a completely different game, different weather situation, and the Bills, if they play like I know they can play, they should have a solid chance at winning the game. I just on gut from early on in the season, I'm going to go with the Bills to beat the Patriots.
Okay. I'm gonna mirror that pick. I'm going with the Bills. Um, I wanted to pick New England, but I feel a little bit burned from what happened last week against the Colts.
Hmm.
And on top of that, I just don't see that same run heavy approach working like it did for them in the last meetup with Buffalo. And so, and then looking at Buffalo's side, I mean, they still have all of the elements to be a powerhouse team, and they've just not played like it every week. But I think this is like, hey, this is a week. You got to show us you can do it, and we'll have some faith, and we'll go from there. So I'm taking Buffalo here as well. Next up, we got the Buccaneers at the Panthers in a
So
fucking
this,
14-point spread, man.
yeah. So this game concerns me, and the reason it concerns me is because I don't know how Tampa Bay is going to react with all the injuries, with all the players they lost against the Saints. I just can't, based on what I'm reading, like I said, Cam Newton's going to start the game, but Sam Darnold's going to play.
Yeah.
There's like, what the, if if Carolina wins this game, that would mean that Brady lost to Heineke. Brady lost to was it Hill or was it Simeon that started for the Saints? I think he lost to both of them.
I think it was Simeon. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
because I guess because this past week it would have been the other one. Yeah.
yeah. Um, he's all these like no-name quarterbacks beat them, which I don't think is going to happen. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay, but I have some hesitation because of the injuries Tampa Bay suffered this past week.
Yeah, I would say honestly, it seems like it could be a betting opportunity. Not that I'm giving betting advice for people, but a 14-point spread. I mean, it goes to show you that Carolina is that much worse than the Buccaneers. But like you said, with the Buccaneers having all these injuries and COVID issues, whatever else going on, it just seems like maybe 14 points is too big of a spread. Either way, I'm going with Tampa Bay. I think they're the pick, and I think that losing Fournette hurts, but I do believe Ronald Jones is a more than capable backup. He has had plenty of time as a starting running back, and he's shown the potential's there. Um, so I think the Bucks win it, but yeah, maybe not by 14.
Hmm.
All right, next up. I'm just going to say this is probably your shittiest matchup of the week, James, that you've been saving is the Jags at the Jets.
Yes.
Yes. All right, so tell
All
me
right.
tell me your pick and give me your rundown.
All right. I'm going with the Jets here. While everybody looks good against the Jets, Trevor Lawrence hasn't looked good against anybody this year, hasn't even looked decent against anybody this year.
Yeah.
So I can't fathom him looking good against the Jets. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars as my worst team, and I have the Jets one spot ahead of them. So that's kind of how I picked it based on my rankings.
I got you. So yeah, I thought that this game was a little bit of a tricky one, and I say that because both these teams suck, and I think Jacksonville clearly sucks more. Um, but it's tricky because Robert Saleh might be out because he's got the COVID deal going, and so I think it's a little bit risky, but I'm still taking the Jets in this one. Um, I think for Jacksonville, you've got now a full week going with Daryl Bevell coaching this team. Maybe that helps get him in line, but they're going to have to show me that before I get on any kind of a bandwagon for the Jags. So I'm with the Jets on this one. Next up, let's have a little bit of fun, man. Detroit at Atlanta, hot Atlanta.
So Atlanta has what do they have? 5 wins on the season. Two, three, four, five, six. 6 wins on the season. Um, the teams they beat: Carolina, Jacksonville. Oh, they beat New Orleans. They beat Miami, but that was early Miami.
Yeah,
They beat the Jets and they beat the Giants.
yeah, they're good at beating up the shitty teams.
But in addition to that, teams they lost to the Eagles, they lost to Washington, they lost to Carolina. So, I mean, they just suck.
They're a
They
shitty
just
team too.
pure and simply sucks. And it's 6 wins, not 5. Whatever. Um, they're a thoroughly shitty team. Detroit, while it's on the road, I can't see Detroit going down to Atlanta and losing. Atlanta seems to roll over, Detroit seems to fight you to the end,
Yeah.
and that I'm going to go with Detroit in the game.
Yeah, I like the way that you said that. Detroit definitely fights until the end. I think that Denver game was like the one bad exception for the Lions, and they had a lot of guys out that game. They had a lot of guys hurt. They had a lot of guys got the flu at the last minute, and then Denver had the Demarius Thomas kind of emotional rally. I think Detroit, especially this past week with the win over Arizona, this could be maybe the turning point where this team starts to trend upward. And I'm not like going crazy like pounding Kool-Aid. I'm just saying that I think that this is the start of they're going to start winning more than people think from here. And it's going to give them momentum going into the offseason and going into next year. And I'm still going to temper the shit out of my expectations. But I like it, man. They play good run heavy football, and they've been playing better on defense, and that's a good recipe. They like we talk about it a lot. They're building from the trenches. They're running the ball a lot, helps them control the clock a little bit. And if the defense keeps moving in the right direction, man, I know I'm getting crazy here talking about the Lions, but I'm picking the Lions with you. Next up, we got the Chargers at the Texans.
Top 10 team versus a bottom 5 team, 6 team in my power rankings. Chargers are going to thoroughly dominate the Texans and win the game.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard to call the Texans to win this one, and I'm going with the Chargers as well. I will say when we were looking at it last week, talking about Davis Mills, I was telling you that I felt like he could outplay Trevor Lawrence because the proof was in the pudding when you looked at their stats. This week, I think the proof is in the pudding again, just in a different way, which is that Justin Herbert is clearly far, far superior. And not only that, the Chargers, they've got better talent all around and better coaching all around, in my opinion. And so it's an easy pick. You got to go with the Chargers all the way here. Next up, we got the Ravens at the Bengals.
So I think the Bengals are the best team in the AFC North. I don't, and again with Harbaugh and his decision making, it concerns me about the Ravens. And who would have thought that I would pick the Ravens to lose because of Harbaugh?
Yeah.
It's just how it's been going lately. I'm going to go with the Bengals.
Okay. I'm going with the Ravens. This was an extremely tough game for me to pick, and I've been, I think, all season long doubting both of these teams, and it's like as soon as I get behind them, they lose, and I'm like, God damn it! I was just getting fired up for these guys, and then I dog them, and they start winning games, and both these teams they're doing pretty well overall, but it's just tough. It's tough. I like how Baltimore played against Green Bay last week, and if they can put up that kind of a fight again, I think they beat Cincinnati, and so I'm going with the Ravens in this one. And I think Harbaugh knows he's got to tighten it down. He's been a little too aggressive, and it's burned him twice now. And so, um, you know, yeah, I'm going with the Ravens. Next up, we got the Bears at the Seahawks.
Man, another shitty game this week. Both these teams look like shit. Um, I'm gonna go with Seattle just because it would be fitting that Russ beats Chicago the year before he's traded to Chicago, but
Oh, jeez.
so I'm gonna go with Seattle.
I don't think he goes to Chicago. They
No,
just
he's not
drafted
going to Seattle. They
Fields,
just
but
drafted Fields. I know, I
but
understand that.
I
I
know
was
what
just
you're saying.
bringing up a
Yeah.
comment from the off season.
All right. Yeah, you're having fun with it. That's fine. I'm going with Seattle here as well. I think that, like you said, this is a shitty game. These two teams suck. The thing is, we knew Chicago was going to suck, or more than likely would suck. We didn't really expect it out of Seattle, but it's happening. The wheels have fallen off. But still, at the end of the day, Seattle does have Russell Wilson. And so that alone, in my opinion, gives them the edge in this game. Plus, it helps that it's in Seattle. So this game was a fairly easy pick for me. Next up, we got the Steelers at the Chiefs, and it's a fucking COVID week, James. But we got to make picks, so let's talk about it.
Okay, so the Steelers are a shitty team. The Chiefs are a good team. I'm going with Kansas City. I don't care how many players have COVID. They have so much talent offensively, defensively on the Chiefs. How they've been playing lately. They've been playing like the Chiefs so old. They'll overcome it. Chiefs win. Chiefs win by 60, and just Ben Roethlisberger retires at halftime.
Oh man, a lot of bold statements there, James.
I'm kidding about the 60, not necessarily the Roethlisberger retiring at halftime.
Okay, okay. Yeah, no, look, COVID makes it tricky for sure. Uh, if it weren't for COVID, I would say the Steelers have a very, very small chance in this game. I think because of COVID, you got to roll the dice. Anything could happen. But I still like the Chiefs. I think they still have more talent. And, they've got enough guys to come out on top. So I'm going with the Chiefs too. Next up, we got the Broncos at the Raiders.
I don't like either of these teams to win this game, actually. But I have to make a pick. I can't pick a tie. Uh,
I mean, you could. You did it once before, didn't you?
I did do it once before, and I was like a week off on when the tie was going to happen, but
Yeah.
that's okay. I just think I'm going to go with Denver on this, more on a gut feeling that than I'm really confident that Denver's going to beat the Raiders. I don't like how either team's playing right now,
Yeah.
so
Okay. So I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to take the Raiders. And, as much as I like the Denver defense, it's hard to trust their situation on offense. And, and it sucks to say it because honestly, they've got uh, an improving offensive line from where it's been in past years. They've got a solid 1-2 combo at running back, and they have plenty of receiving weapons. They just don't have a freaking quarterback. And, with Bridgewater being out, here's the thing. It's a wild card now because, like you said, Drew Lock, you get a little bit of everything. It's a mixed bag. Sometimes he plays fucking great. Most of the time, he plays like a fucking idiot. And so, you know, I just can't trust it. I think Derek Carr, he's more stable. He's had a great year. Um, and so, I don't really like it either way. Like you're saying, I don't really like either of these teams, but I'm going to pick the Raiders, and I wouldn't be surprised either way. Next up, we got the Washington football team at the Dallas Cowboys.
I don't trust Dallas this year at all. They seem to play down to their opponent when they're so clearly when they're clearly better than their opponent. They seem to play down to them. But on the flip side, the Washington football team, God, this is the Sunday night game.
uh,
Sorry, Dallas is going to win the game. Washington is too inconsistent. I don't trust their quarterback. I don't trust Dallas, but I trust Dallas a little bit more than I do Washington.
yeah, and I'm going with Dallas as well. The last I heard, Garrett Gilbert is getting the start over Heineke because Heineke's still on the COVID list.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I think the Garrett Gilbert thing makes it a little bit unpredictable, but I don't think it's a good thing. And so, it's a divisional game. Normally, anything can happen. I think the tough part about this game, just being serious for a minute, is we talked about the COVID outbreak at the wrong point of the year, and with Washington sitting at 6-8, a COVID week in a COVID loss, man, their playoff chances, they're slipping away, and it sucks, But I didn't think they'd beat Dallas anyhow, and so I'm going with the Cowboys.
Wait, weren't
Uh,
they basically eliminated from the playoffs?
maybe they are, maybe they are. So
I thought
maybe,
they were. I thought they couldn't. I thought I read that, but I guess I'm wrong because the Giants are still mathematically.
yeah, I'd have
Okay.
to go back and look at the records, but all right, yeah. I mean, if the Giants still have a chance, then yeah, they still got a
Yeah.
chance. All right, last up, since we don't need to do next Thursday because we're going to be doing this again next
There's
Wednesday.
no Thursday night game. This week's the last Thursday night game.
Oh shit. Well, hey, thank you for correcting me there. I'm actually gonna delete. Well, no, I'm not gonna delete that out. All right. So the last game for this week is the Dolphins at the Saints. Who do you like here, James? This was a
Neither of
tough
them.
game for me to pick, man.
The Saints. I don't. I have trouble saying that I don't trust a Sean Payton coach team
Yeah.
offensively. I have a lot of trouble saying that, but this year I just don't. I don't trust the Saints. If Jameis was there, it might be a different story. I don't trust the Saints. I think the Dolphins are. I mean, winning six straight. They've won six straight. They're going to lose eventually, but I don't think it's this week. I think our Dolphins will lose down the line. Not this week. maybe, let me see, what's their remaining schedule? Ooh. Dolphins might not lose again this year. Maybe. Oh, okay, never mind. I looked at it wrong. Like their preseason, it shows up at the bottom of the list on the schedule. So I was looking at it as like Chicago, Atlanta, Cincinnati. Like,
Oh,
oh, no, those are preseason games. Okay. So yeah, Miami's gonna win this week, take care of business, and then they'll probably lose the final two games.
I gotcha. I'm going with Miami as well. And I thought it was a tough game to pick. I like the way you put it. It's hard to see a Sean Payton team like this. Um, I think that the win over Tampa Bay is what makes it so difficult in my mind when I look at it. And I agree. If they had Jameis Winston, I'd probably be all over the Saints in this game, especially at this point in the year. It seems like Winston would be like fully in a rhythm by now, but that ship has sailed because of the injury. And so, you know, I think at the end of the day, I like the Dolphins' momentum, even though it's on the road. And so I'm gonna go with the Dolphins here too. Okay, okay, James. Those are the picks for the week. Let's move it on over. Do a little question of the week action. And this is one that we talked a little bit about Cooper Cup earlier. And I saw an article just earlier today, actually. I believe it was on ESPN.com. Maybe it was an NFL Network thing. But it was talking about some guy basically suggesting that Cooper Cup should be in the MVP discussion. And the article said that he's got a chance at winning the wide receiver triple crown, which means the most receptions, the most reception yards, and the most reception touchdowns all in the same season. So my question for you, and I'll give you my answer while you think about it, but my question for you is, do you think he's done enough or has time yet to do enough to legitimately be in the MVP conversation? And I'll just say, I love Cooper Cup. I remember when he came out of college, third round pick, Eastern Washington. There were a lot of scouts basically saying the guy ran crisp, great running routes, but that he lacked some of the NFL size and particularly the speed. And my opinion, when he got drafted, I thought he was a steal, but I had no idea he would be this much of a steal. I thought he'd be a solid mid-round pick that would be like a good value contributor. I had no idea he would be like just fucking lighting it up like this. And this year in particular, he's been great his whole career, but this year in particular, he's sitting at 122 receptions right now, 1,625 yards, and 14 TDs with a couple weeks to go. I went and I checked his game logs. His worst game of the season was 5 receptions for 64 yards. In every other game this year, he's had at least 92 yards. Okay. And so, with all that being said, we've talked a lot before about the MVP is almost exclusively a quarterback award, and that makes it very difficult to consider a wide receiver. Um, and I went and looked. I wanted to see, what happened the year that Calvin Johnson almost had 2,000 yards. And I think he was like sixth or something in the voting that year. But I think the big difference was that Calvin Johnson, even though he had almost 2,000 yards, he only had 5 freaking touchdowns. Like, how did that happen? I don't even know how that happened. It blows my mind. Um, with Cooper Cup, I think it's he'd be hard pressed to get the MVP. But I think that my opinion is if he could get closer to 20 touchdowns and 2,000 yards, I think you got to legitimately put him in the conversation. I just don't think he'd get it because it's a fucking quarterback thing and the system's fucked up that way. Just my opinion. Long winded. Over to you. What do you think, man?
All right. Short answer: he has no fucking chance of winning MVP. Should he be in the conversation? Fuck no.
Okay.
To be in the conversation for MVP, you have to be the best player on your team. You have to be the MVP of your own team. And he's quite simply not that. The MVP of the Rams currently is Aaron Donald. It
That's a very good
will
point. That's a
always
very good
be
point.
Aaron Donald unless Aaron Donald gets hurt. Um, Aaron Donald is just disrupts other teams so much offensively that it's giving Cooper Kupp more chances for receptions. And Aaron Donald's just that fucking good that he overshadows everybody on the team. Shit, Matthew Stafford has what, like 5,000 yards passing already this year? 4,100. He has 4,100 yards already this year, and Aaron Donald's still better for the team than him. Matthew Stafford has 35 to 10 touchdown interception ratio this year. Aaron Donald's still better than Stafford. Aaron
Yeah.
Donald's still the MVP of the team, and you have to be the MVP of the team to be the MVP of the league.
That's a very valid, good argument, and I'm glad you said it that way. I got caught up in the hoopla for a minute there, and I mean, hey, I love Cooper Kupp, but you're right. Aaron Donald is the better player on that team, and this is not an offensive award we're talking about. This is an overall award. Um, well, I'm glad we talked about it. All right, so for anybody who's watching, similar to Name That Stadium, we'd like you to share your thoughts. Hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you think about the Cooper Cup situation. And so, James, that's all I got for tonight, man. You got any closing thoughts?
No, I think that's all I got as well.
All right, good stuff. Well, hey, for everybody out there, we hope you like the show. We appreciate the support. Hit us up with a thumbs up if you liked it. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. James, like always, man, it was good. I will catch you later.
That sounds good. Have a good one.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.